If you ever have suspected that someone is out to harm you, either due to sheer suspicion or having real evidence, you might be inclined to keep it to yourself and act passively to the unfolding of the situation. Let's look at how we can confirm the validity of our suspicions and what to do if it turns out to be true. In the US, nearly 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men have experienced stalking victimization at some point in their lifetime. The vast majority of stalking victims are stalked by someone they know. 30% by a current or former intimate partner, and 42% by an acquaintance. 69% of female and 80% of male stalking victims were threatened with physical harm. As many as 7.5 million people experience cyberstalking each year. 80% of all stalking victims are tracked using technology. These statistics paint a grim picture, but it helps us understand how common it is and who is likely to do this. Knowing this can make it easier for us to see the signs early and start working to stop this and spread awareness to others who might support you as fast as possible. At Allmeer, we believe that having a system that helps you understand your gut feelings and provide a way to confirm the validity of these feelings can help you reach conclusions in faster and safe ways. Compared to the usual unstructured way, where you have to battle your own doubts and fears of looking ridiculous in others' eyes for having the suspicions, another thing that makes other people catch on slower than you on a perceived threat is that you might have these feelings for an extended time, and maybe you have seen some solid evidence that confirms your feeling. So when others are informed, they have much less information to go on. Stalking is just one way to understand how violence and or the threat of violence is inflicted upon another person. The threat can be both psychological and physical in nature. According to the US Department of Justice, stalking is defined by being repeated unwanted contacts or behaviors that either cause the victim to experience fear or substantial emotional distress, or that would cause a reasonable person to experience fear or substantial emotional distress. They also separate technological stalking to traditional stalking. Traditional stalking would be the following and watching, sneaking into a place, waiting at a place, showing up at a place, leaving or sending unwanted items, harassing friends or family about the victim's whereabouts. Stalking with technology includes making unwanted phone calls, leaving voice messages or sending text messages, spying using technology, tracking the victim's whereabouts with an electronic tracking device or application. Posting or threatening to post unwanted information on the internet, sending unwanted emails or messages using the internet, monitoring activities using social media. For the people over the age of 16, the Department of Justice report Stalking Victimization 2016 finds that 1.5% of the population of 3.8 million were victims of stalking that same year. More experienced stalking with technology than traditional stalking. Most knew their offender in some capacity, 3 times as likely to be stalked by ex intimate partners than by current intimate partners. Stalking victims suffer much higher rates of depression, anxiety, insomnia, and social dysfunction than people in their general population. Intimate partner stalkers are the most likely stalkers to approach, threaten, and harm their victims. Less than a third of stalking victims report the crimes to police. The consequences of this type of harassment is reduced quality of life, mental illness, and in the worst case, violence and physical harm. Some resistance to inform police exists, mainly due to failings from the justice system to prevent stalking and its consequences. Stalking is a high risk indicator of domestic homicide. One case details how an ex intimate partner, since several years after domestic abuse and stalking prevention order, failed to appear in court after breaching the order. He was not arrested even though an arrest warrant had been issued 3 weeks before he stabbed his ex wife to death. 2 years prior to her murder, the victim had expressed to a friend how she thought that she would die at her ex husband's hands. According to the victim, the perpetrator had cameras in her house, recording her for months. He stole her mail, her phone, had access to all her personal data. People have expressed that they feel the typical stereotype is that stalking is just a small thing when it is not and leads to murders all around the globe. This is not an isolated incident, and the outcome is not uncommon. Neither is the failure from authorities. Even though this is a severe case, even before the murder, it clearly shows that even if many people knew about the threat, not enough was done to protect the victim. Her close peers knew about the situation, police knew about the situation. Still, the perpetrator could have full access to his victim for several years until he finally decided to end her life. This specific example had its own specific circumstances and context, which might not reflect all of the stalking cases. Though patterns can be seen in how the situation unfolded, which might reflect other stalking, domestic abuse, and murder cases. We believe that working with simple models help us manage situations we don't face often. Usually, we focus on developing skills in things that are of interest of ours. We are inclined to favor things that we have an easier time doing in the beginning, maybe due to talent or having other skills that mirror the new task and makes it easier. On the contrary, we are inclined to avoid things that might seem too hard to do or learn, and especially if they make us uncomfortable. Sometimes different deterring aspects accumulate, making it even harder to learn and create habits. Let's say that you have been struggling with mental health, your self image, and you are plagued with bad habits during some time back. Add some social anxiety, and the journey to wellness might be tougher than it seems from a surface level inspection. Even if you are in a stage where you want to turn your life around and start being healthier, you might find it harder than anticipated to join a gym to start losing weight and gaining muscle by the sheer fact that other people might judge you. So you are not only trying to break habits, you also need to fight your demons and self image. Objectively, you do understand the benefits of starting out, but it might be so that your mental image prevents you by creating fear. All this to say that it might be easier to just shrug early signals off due to the uncomfortable implications they allude to. Instead of thinking about what the controlling behavior of a partner or acquaintance can eventually lead up to, we hope that it will just go away if we just do what the other part wants. In these cases, it is easier to use models that helps us categorize and sort things into aspects we want to have in our lives and things that don't fit and thus needs to be removed for our own well-being. The awareness that the studies show puts the shortcomings of the systems in place in contrast to the amount of people affected by stalking. This is similarly shown by the case mentioned. Everyone was aware about the gravity of the situation, but not enough was done to solve it. Even though Allmeer highlights the importance of awareness by the person being harassed or stalked, communicating it to peers and authorities, and doing things in your control to mitigate the risk. We also propose a primarily self preservation approach, where you and your peers have a clear understanding of the different ways harm can be done to you and how to prevent it. This means that yes, the authorities need to be informed and processes need to start. But restraining orders are not the end of your actions, they are merely a marking of escalation from your part. Thus, expect outlash from the other part and be prepared to, together with your safety contacts. The Almer process highlights the importance of making people and the authorities aware of the situation, actionable steps to strengthen your position, and contingency plans for different outcomes. The aim of the Allmeer toolset is to give actionable advice for how to perceive the work needed to get yourself out of a sticky situation. This can either be by preventing it altogether or using the available resources to get you out of danger. By using studies to understand the scope of the problem and the outcomes, we educate ourselves on the matter. By using case studies, we look at how a situation can look. Either you find similarities to your situation or you get insights in things you had never thought about before. By using the Almer app and our actionable models, you can train and develop habits together with your contact that will help you in the eventuality of a harmful event. The education in these topics needs to be adapted to your specific situation, which requires a certain level of dedication on your part. Being informed, aware, and having the correct tools are only one part. The other part is studying, practicing, and setting up the habits with your contact until it becomes second nature. At Almer, we work with threats from different angles. The importance of noticing the early signs of something developing to a stalking behavior. Don't swat suspicions or gut feeling away as something silly. If you notice yourself feeling uncomfortable and unsafe, run your objective mental templates that you would use if someone you cared for was in the same situation. What would you tell them to do? Document your thoughts and suspicions. Use the Almer journaling page to put everything in writing your feelings, what caused them, when and where, were you alone or did it happen in public? Document bruises and other things that are out of order. If you think something would contribute as evidence in the case that things escalate and go to court, add it. Add date and place. Search for patterns together with your contact to try to predict the next step or phase of the harassment. Post Allmeer status updates whenever something triggers your gut feeling. Then you also make your contact aware in real time. Work out actionable steps that your contact can take in different scenarios. Use the Allmeer presets to structure the steps your contact needs to take depending on each situation. Try to be as proactive in this step as possible. If a situation you had not foreseen happens, having a general preset for your contact to start actively supporting you can mitigate it. When the event is over, evaluate it together, learn and adjust your plans and presets. If we use the case study mentioned earlier, the victim had already identified the threat, informed peers and authorities, and felt that she had done everything in her power to stop the perpetrator. She knew since more than 2 years that the threat she faced could result in her life ended. At this point, the severity of the threat would mean that the risk and the consequence are in the highest threat level. The actions for mitigation need to reflect this as well. Actionable steps for how to protect yourself from cyberstalking can be found at safehome.org under cyberstalking. Links in the description. What can be done to protect yourself when you believe that there is a threat to your life? Assuming that evidence is documented, your peers and authorities are informed, and legal restrictions put in place. Even the cyberstalking protection has been put in place. Plans need to be made with your safety contact and systems put into place. These can look as following. Routine activities outside need to be closely monitored by posting Allmeer updates in the feed with location and where you are going. Any new sightings or signs of the perpetrator informed in the feed and added to the journaling collection of evidence. On call contacts can be the same safety person or additional ones that have the means to subdue or meet whatever violence the perpetrator has been assessed to be able to output. Protective measures such as reinforced locks, doors, make entry into your home as hard as possible for the perpetrator. Emergency protection such as first aid kit, fire extinguishers, and any type of self defense measures readily available. You need to focus on always being able to give your breathing room and buy you time if the perpetrator would attack. Practice situational awareness. Create safety habits together with your contacts. Decide point of contacts, frequency, and contingency plans. Break patterns in your life. Sleep at friend's house sometimes. Change routes to common places such as work and training, daycare, etc. Inform your colleagues and manager of the situation. Make everyone aware of the perpetrator. Commit to keeping the alarm levels to fixed periods. When things start winding down, step it down a notch, but keep practicing the habits. Be ready to raise the threat level with the contingency plans when anything indicates that the perpetrator is active again. Have your protective measures and contacts on standby, ready to be activated when needed. Have presets set for the different threat levels in the Allmeer app. Remember that the more proficient you get together with your contacts in adapting the habits, the more sustainable and persistent will the plans be. It can take a long time for the perpetrator to stop or being locked up. So, key points. Contrary to what you might feel when you are in a stalking situation, not everything is hopeless. There are many ways to protect yourself, and your ability to self preservation might surprise you. Knowing the signs, being aware of your gut feeling, spreading awareness by informing everyone and the authorities, even if the response might seem slow and of little use. Create contingency plans with your contacts, create threat levels with different protective measures. Practice them, create habits around them until they become second nature. Prepare for escalation by the perpetrator as a response to outing them. The more knowledge we gather, the more time we have to contemplate the situation, the more comfortable we are with our safety habits, the easier it will be for us to control the fear and anxiety that harassment can make us feel. Don't let the perpetrator isolate or control you. Work around the restrictions that the perpetrator tries to put on you. Work proactively and undercover if needed. Don't let the hopelessness take a hold. Educate yourself and overcome one of the biggest real threats in your life. It might depend on it. If you or someone you know faces anything remotely similar to these cases, please share this video with them or with your own safety contact. Help each other out. There is strength in numbers. All of the links will be down in the description. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to support our cause, you can do so by subscribing to our community forum or our app. You can find it in both the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store.